You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. How you doing tonight?
What is up, D? I'm doing good, man. Another Friday night. Kicked off by a wild Thursday night game. Holy smokes. I did not see Miami coming away with the victory in that one. But, we're getting through it. Lots of injuries. We got 4 teams on a bye this week. There's a lot of things swirling around. We're all trying to make a playoff push. But I'm sitting good, man. I'm sitting pretty. I'm liking it. And we're talking football on a Friday night.
That is very true. Never a bad night when I get to sit down and talk football with the Good Old Boys and the Good Old Boys crew. Absolutely. So, every time I get to sit down with you and Alex and just talk football, it makes my whole day. So, always a good time there. And the fact that we're going to get to jump into this slate of games, and with some of these injuries out there, and we're going to get into a lot of that, and with some of the, I don't think Week 10 got the memo that Week 9 and all those crazy buys were over because it carried into that game last night. And I'm hoping that, we don't get some of that craziness that carries on into the Sunday slate of games and the Monday slate of games, because those always get a little bit tougher to project and predict. So hoping that we can get some ones that kind of roll our way this week, because last week was not necessarily the case on that one, at least for me on some of my pick'ems and some of that stuff. It was a little rough on that one. So, but last night, a little crazy there, right? There was lots of different things there. I don't think any of us saw Lamar putting up that kind of stinker of a performance. I know that, most of us, when we were talking on the Tuesday show and we're recapping that one, we were thinking the Ravens were just going to stomp Miami into the ground without, much regard there. And it was anything but. Like, Miami came out and just controlled that game kind of start to finish on a great defensive performance there. And, really, really just kind of an interesting thing there. What other thoughts did you have on that one?
I thought Miami's defensive game plan was beautiful. Beautiful. And the Ravens just couldn't adjust, right? Like, I don't know that I had seen a game this season that the game plan really that the Dolphins played. Like, they had 9 or 10 guys on the line of scrimmage almost every single snap. Like, it was crazy to see. And their defensive line did a great job of getting their hands up and just kind of swinging them around to deflect some of those passes. You could tell that it was frustrating the crap out of Lamar. And because they had so many guys up front and then a couple would drop back, there was always, like, the Ravens just couldn't guess it right of which guys were dropping back, right? And so they're running these zone read plays, and sure enough, more times than not, they missed one of the either a linebacker or a safety, and they were able to kind of blow up their running game. And it was just nuts. Lamar was a little off, right? Like, his accuracy had been really, really good. For the most part this season, it was a little off last night. He had a hard time connecting with Hollywood Brown. Rashard Bateman looked good, though. I mean, that's a plus to take away from the Dolphins. Mark Andrews got his. So it was parts of it were there. But overall, Miami's ability to really shut Baltimore down from their third drive until their 10th drive, right? So 3 through 9, lots of punts. And I was impressed. I was very much impressed. It looked like the Miami Dolphins defense from last season that so many people were kind of hyped up about this coming into this season, and we really hadn't seen it yet. They played well against the Texans last week, but no one really gave any credence to that because it's the Texans, right? Yeah. The Texans are the worst team in the NFL, and no one's going to give you credit for playing a sound defensive game against Houston. But holy smokes, that was crazy. Jacoby getting pulled after he said he was good to go, and Flores said, "Nah, we're going to stick the guy in. We're going to stick our starter back in." And Tua maintained, right? Tua didn't play terribly. Got the touchdown, everything else. So, I mean, he actually ended up scoring fairly well for fantasy.
It actually looked like that Miami offense got a little bit more spark in there when Tua came in versus what you had seen with Jacoby Brissett there. But that Miami's Dolphins offense just, yeah, I've seen them play a couple of times this year, and every time I'm less than impressed by, their offensive, play calling, their schemes, the fact that they just can't seem to get their guys going there really leads to some interesting game scripts there. And it's a really good thing that defense played such a shutdown type of performance and really contained Baltimore to the point where that Miami Dolphins offense, which, and actually both offenses seem to have a really hard time going through three quarters. And then all of a sudden the fourth quarter came around and, we remembered what high scoring offense looks like. And, there was a ton of points put up in that fourth quarter that really just weren't the case in the three quarters previous there.
I think the thing I'm going to say most surprised about, because I was surprised by a lot of things in that game, but one thing I was very surprised about was Mike Gesicki went 0 for 7.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they tried to get him the ball, right? They tried to find ways to get into the ball and move the chains. Him and Jacoby were just like a half a step off. Like, Jacoby Brissett was looking for him, and they were just half a step off. Gesicki had 2 or 3 that were kind of in his hands, and he just couldn't complete the catch all the way to the ground, and they just kind of bounced out. Tua was like, that's a disappointing fantasy performance, right? From the number 4 tight end up until this week started to come with the goose. That's frustrating. That's hard to swallow, and you're definitely disappointed if you had Gesicki in your starting lineup, knowing that he was going to be a big focal point that night. It's a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, it certainly does, right? Like, it's one of those that just seemed like it had really good, you got good volume there. I'm sorry, what?
Thought I lost you. Our feed got crazy there for a second.
Yeah, it did. I can hear you. That looks like the video is still a little wonky there, but I can certainly hear you again. All right. So I'm going to hope that Kevin can hear me there as well. And, we'll kind of keep rocking and rolling through this thing. But yeah, that game last night was definitely an interesting one from the standpoint that, Gesicki was a guy that you thought was going to have a pretty good game. He was a guy that was up there in my rankings and was one that really just didn't come out and didn't pan out there for fantasy there, right? When you sit there and you say, if you were to just get the stat line on targets, you would say, hey, Mike Gesicki was targeted 7 times in that game. And you would have thought that would have been a pretty good stat line there. And it just wasn't. And Kevin, you look so much clearer. And I hope that you're back.
Yeah, I thought it was you for a second, and then I realized it was me. So I changed internet feeds here real quick, and hopefully we're not going to have issues with this one. I apologize.
The video is far cleaner on this one, so I think we should be probably pretty good to go there. But any other thoughts on the game last night before we start kicking into some of our breakdowns for the week?
I think the biggest thought is if you need wide receiver help and Rashard Bateman's still out there,
yes.
Like, you need to be looking at putting in a waiver claim for him if you need some wide receiver help. Like, Lamar was actively looking for him. Bateman showed great hands, which is what he was known for in college, was able to get the chains moving and was really the consistent bright spot of that passing game. And Mark Andrews did his damage, right? When they could protect Lamar and he could drive the ball down the field, Andrews got his in chunks, 15, 12 yards at a time. But Bateman really did a lot of the dirty work. And that's kind of what you expect from him, right? Like, he's a hard route running guy, great hands, a little bit bigger bodied. And so him and Andrews can kind of tag team some of that dirty work, where Hollywood Brown is more of a deep threat. You want him running deep outs or deep ins, posts, corners, double move routes, that type of thing. So yeah, it'd be worth a flyer to stash him. I mean, if he's out there, stash him.
Well, that's one of those that we've brought his name up a couple of times on the Tuesday shows here, that, not necessarily the top name on the waiver claims, but definitely up there in the top, 3-4, a lot of weeks running here, that he was a guy that, if it's still on your waivers, was definitely worth taking a look at and potentially stashing there. And I think that time has fully come now. Maybe a guy that, if you can maybe, if somebody's got him on the roster, that they drafted him and tried to sit through the injury. I know that that's happened in a couple of leagues that we're in together, that, if you can go out there and make a trade happen for him and maybe give up, some other types of pieces there to potentially try and take an upswing pick on that one, to give somebody that has a little bit safer floor on that. That's definitely a guy that I'd be looking to try and acquire on some trade targets, things like that as well. So that would be one that I'd be looking for very much so. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll start kicking into some of these game breakdowns on the week. Guys, if you go ahead.
Nope, you're getting right into it. I was about to say the same thing before we got in. Questions, comments, concerns, roster moves, trades, waiver wire pickups. Feel free, hit us up. We love to be interactive through the show. So anything through Facebook and YouTube will be able to pop up here on the screen. Twitter, Derek will have to get your comments and read them aloud, just because of how StreamYard and Twitter are not necessarily fully synced, so we don't get to put your comments up on the screen, but we'll get to everybody, we promise. And feel free to fire them off, because it makes the show a lot of fun when you guys are interactive with us.
Absolutely. We very much appreciate that. And guys, if you can do us a big favor as well, head on over to the YouTube channel, Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell. We do this show for you live 3 times a week, and that's one of the best ways to get notified that we're going live. We go live on Tuesdays, 11 p.m. Eastern, Fridays, 11 p.m. Eastern, Sunday mornings, 11:45 a.m. Eastern, and helping you guys try and win that cash and trophy. So do us a favor, head over there, help us support the show. YouTube.com, Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, and help us out with a subscribe there. But let's go ahead and let's start kicking into some of these matchups here. And the first one that we've got on the slate is a interesting rematch from last year. You had the Atlanta Falcons going to the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas was favored by 9. The over-under on this one is 54.5. And I think a lot of us kind of remember last year when these two teams met, the Falcons had a 20-0 lead at one point in that game and ended up losing it. So this is one that's, has some very interesting thoughts here and some interesting potential on this one. But what are your thoughts?
When I first looked at this and looking at the stats and everything, I'm like, you know what? I don't know that Dallas is going to cover this. Yeah, they're at home. Yes, they should be coming off of a game, and focused after looking like poo against the Broncos last week. The Falcons are definitely riding high after stealing one from the Saints. But then I got to thinking, Dan Quinn is very well aware of what this offense can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And yes, Dallas is giving up the fourth most yards per play in the NFL this season. Yes, Dallas has not had a turnover in 3 games, and so it's very quickly bringing this defense back down to earth, where the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season when they were playing, they looked out of this world because they're creating a lot of turnovers and the yardage didn't matter as much. So I like the over here for sure, just because of those things. I do think it's going to be hard to stop either team. Now, the Cowboys just have more weapons, right? Like Calvin Ridley not playing. He's still out as the team gives him some time away to get his mental health in order. Big Cordell Patterson game, right? Like if you have him, you have to start him. You're playing Russell Gage and you're playing Kyle Pitts. I think those are kind of, and I guess you're playing Russell Gage if you're caught on bye weeks and you need to, right? Like Russell Gage is firmly cemented in that wide receiver 3 territory. There's some leagues you're going to have to play in. But if you don't, that's okay. You can pivot away, but you're definitely playing Pitts, Cordell Patterson. I'm playing Matt Ryan in a lot of places because I do think that they're going to be able to dink and dunk and kind of get their way through some things. So I expect some fireworks. Latest reports was we expect Zeke to go, which is a good thing. So that'll help that Cowboys offense out a lot. And it should be a fun one. So I'm going to take the over, but I am going to take Atlanta to cover. I think this is a 7-point game, not a 9 or 10-point game.
Yeah, that one kind of has that feel of this thing that, you think about last year when they just got into a shootout on that one there. Dallas ended up, winning by a field goal right at the end. And that one is really kind of how this one, I could see that one come into play on this one here. It's an interesting game too, because of the fact that we have a revenge game narrative, right? Typically we talk about the players having revenge games. This is a coach having a revenge game type of thing, right? Dan Quinn was the head coordinator of the Falcons, or the head coach of the Falcons last year, and was relieved of those duties and is now the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys, which speaks very much to the point that you were making earlier that, he is very well aware of what that offense is going to do. And I think that they're going to be schemed around that. And you're going to see lots of those things come to play there. But these two teams seem to kind of always get up to play each other. As far as putting points on the board, the Falcons are a little bit less equipped to do that this year than they are in previous years, but I think they'll still find a way to do that. That 55-point line, normally is one that it kind of scares me off a little bit. Not necessarily the case in this one, because I'm going to see this one really being kind of a 31-24, 31-28 type of game there. And that's really where I'm going to see this one come into play is that type of deal. Both of those would just get you to the over in both of those cases. And I think Dallas will win, but the Falcons are going to keep it a little bit closer than I think Vegas thinks they will. But that's an interesting thought there too, right? Like, what are you doing with Olamide Zacharias? What are you doing with Tajay Sharp in this matchup as well, right? Like, Olamide Zacharias actually had a pretty decent game last week, filling in for the Falcons there. Is that one that you looked for him to potentially continue with, or is it really going to be trying to be a Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage and hoping that you see, and Cordell Patterson, and hoping these other guys see some targets?
I think Zacharias I think he's an emergency play, right? Like he's on like 80% of waiver wires right now. So he is available if you need to go get him. But I don't know that he is going to be a top option for me to play. Yes, it's in probably what should be the highest scoring game of the week in all reality. But I just don't know, especially if I'm fighting for playoff seeding or really trying to push my way into the playoffs, if I'm digging myself out of a hole, that I want to hang my hat on that. If you have to, you have to. And there are leagues where people will, but I just think there's so many better options, but there are better options, right? Like, I'm looking through this, trying to find some options. And, I think I'd rather play Valdez-Scantling or Alan Lazard over that. Zacharias has been used more lately, but the Seahawks defense is actually worse than the Cowboys, like it or not. And if Aaron Rodgers plays, and that's the caveat, and we'll get into that when we start touching this game, but if Aaron Rodgers is playing, I trust that Packers offense more than I trust the Falcons offense. So there is a little bit of something to that. So it's an in case of emergency break glass play for me, and I'm going to really try not to have to break the glass.
I think that's kind of where I'm at there as well, right? Like he's a guy that's going to potentially provide you a little bit of ceiling, a little bit of pop on that one, just because if they do get in a shootout and they have to get the ball spaced around a little bit, like those guys become interesting, DFS type of plays for some ceiling type of things there. But they provide next to no floor when it comes down to season long there. And so again, that's one of those that if to that point that if you need something there, they might be a little bit you might be a little bit harder pressed there if you play them. I wouldn't expect a lot out of that one there. So awesome. Any other thoughts on this game?
No, I don't think so. It should be a good morning game to start the day off right. There should be lots of scoring and to kind of hopefully get the day off on the right foot for fantasy owners.
Right. Let's go ahead and head on over to Tennessee, where the New Orleans Saints are meeting up with the Tennessee Titans. The Titans favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 44. What are your thoughts?
I like the under. And this game's a little weird, right? Like Tannehill didn't practice today due to an illness, is what we're told. Right. I'm not quite sure what that means exactly, but he's expected to go. There's no Alvin Kamara for the Saints. There's no Derrick Henry for the Titans. If Ryan Tannehill can't go, well, then, you're looking at 2 backup quarterbacks going against each other. The Saints are really, really good against the run, so it's going to be tough for Derrick Henry and company to get the ball moving on the ground, which will put more pressure on Tannehill. I think all these things.
Derrick Henry's not going to be playing in this one, so it'll be.
Did I say Derrick Henry? Sorry, I meant Adrian Peterson. My apologies. So I think all these things lead to the under because Trevor Siemian really didn't look good last week, guys. No. Like he had a little bit of run in the fourth quarter to make it close. I don't understand why they're trotting Trevor Siemian out there when you have Taysom Hill. Like you're paying Hill enough money. You need to be playing him at this point. Like that's why you kept him around, really, because of some of the gadgetry and the fact that he knows the offense well enough and can kind of fight through stuff like this. So I think this one's going to be kind of a defensive slugfest, if you will. And ultimately, I think the New Orleans defense is just a little bit better equipped than the Titans defense is. So I'm going to take New Orleans to win outright, and I'm going to take the under. I think we're going to see like a 20-17 type game here.
Yeah, that's kind of right about where I have it as well. It's kind of that 2017, 21-18 type of feel. Like that's just the feel that it has for me as well. So I'm not looking for a lot on this one. And to your point there as well, right? Like it makes more sense to play Taysom Hill, especially since Alvin Kamara ruled out of this one, right? Like now you've got Mark Ingram in there that's going to be given it a go. Taysom Hill actually makes more sense there because you got Mark Ingram that can run between the tackles, and you got Taysom Hill that can get the speed to the outside, and you've got some RPO type more RPO type of options there. But I'm not real sure why the move to stick with Trevor Siemian on this one. Obviously Sean Payton knows something that we don't. Personally, I would probably go the other way around there, but we shall see how this one comes to fruition. I don't think that you're going to see a ton out of any of the real fantasy options on this game there without if Tannehill doesn't go, AJ Brown not looking to really like you're going to play AJ Brown because you kind of have to and you're kind of forced to, but I'm not excited about having to do that move.
No, you're hoping for a deep play to kind of justify fantasy relevance from AJ Brown, right? Lattimore will be draped all over AJ Brown. The New Orleans Saints are very knowledgeable on what Julio does and doesn't do well because of all the years that he spent in Atlanta. They don't use the tight end a whole heck of a lot. You're on your, realistically, you're on your fourth and fifth running backs. With Darrington Evans being on IR with Derrick Henry. So, there's a whole slew of problems going on here. And I think Tennessee's still without their left guard, I believe. So, Cam Jordan from the Saints, you could see him just absolutely go off off in this game. Like, it would not surprise me to see him tee off because neither team is going to have an easy time getting the run going, especially the Titans. So if you like defensive football, you'll get kind of round 2 of what you saw Thursday night, Sunday morning here with this one.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Very cool. Let's go ahead and move on over where the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to visit Indianapolis to take on the Colts, and the spread is 10.5 on this one, over under 47.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like the Colts and I like the over. I think the Colts are on a roll right now. They realize the opportunity at hand. They have to keep winning to keep pace with what Tennessee is doing in the division. The Jaguars are not a very good football team right now. They're coming in on the road. Trevor Lawrence is a little banged up. All signs are pointing towards James Robinson going, but you never know if that injury could kind of flare up throughout the game. So I'm taking the Colts, and I think that trend continues. I think Carson Wentz manages that offense very, very well. You're going to see a lot of Jonathan Taylor again. You'll see Michael Pittman get sprinkled in. Looks like T.Y. Hilton's going to be able to give it a go, but he hasn't officially been cleared from the concussion protocol yet. That will have to come tomorrow. So we'll see how that shakes out for him. But overall, the Colts defensively will be able to shut Jacksonville down, and the offense is good enough to keep pulling away.
Yeah, I would agree with you. This one has a feeling almost like this is one of those that I actually think that it might be a little tough for that over to get hit, because I really kind of see this one being almost a 28-17 type of game, a 28-14 type of game there, which would bring you just on the underside of that. But I do think that the Colts are able to just whoop the Jaguars on this one. So I like the Colts on this one, and I like the under on this one because I really see this one being about a 30-17 type of game, a 28-14 type of game, somewhere in that one, which is going to be just on the underside of points. Again, I look for the backs in Indianapolis to have an absolutely amazing game on this one as well. Not necessarily looking to play many of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dan Arnold maybe has a little bit of some intrigue for me if I need to stream a tight end on this one, just because of the fact that he seems to be kind of that safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence there, and seems to be kind of the release valve on that one when he needs to check down, when he needs to go that way, and he'll get some decent volume when it's all said and done, out of a tight end type of position there. But this one here is one that I don't think is going to turn into much of a back and forth type of game. I think you're going to see the Colts get up and then just take the air out the ball and run Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines all over the place on this one. So any other thoughts here?
No, sir. Another AFC South barn burner.
Right. All righty. Let's go ahead and head on over to New England, where the Cleveland Browns are facing off against the New England Patriots. New England's favored by 2.5. The over-under on this one is 45. What are your thoughts here?
Here's another game where I expect to see the under. Defensively, both these teams are playing pretty well at the moment. Offensively, they're going to struggle to hit their pass catchers. Cleveland's secondary is good enough to stymie Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne and the likes of for New England. And we know New England's secondary is good as well, so they'll be able to keep Donovan Peoples-Jones and Jarvis Landry at bay. If Nick Chubb goes, I think that does tilt it in the Browns' favor. But with Nick Chubb being out, I think the Patriots have enough film on Dearness Johnson to keep him in check. And Bill Belichick takes away what your team does best, right? And with the Browns, it's running the football to set up the play action. So I expect a lot of creative run blitzes to make sure that Cleveland does not get going on the ground. So I'm going to say the Patriots win. Do I expect them to win by a field goal? Yeah, I'll take a field goal game, but I'm taking the under.
Yeah, this one has that kind of 24 This one has a 24-21 type of feel to it, which is almost a push on both lines there. Yeah, and as much as I've got to agree with everything you say, I think that the Browns find a way to try to pull this one out there, even going into a hostile Gillette Stadium, and I think that they're going to do it. I see them ultimately winning that 24-21 type of matchup on this one here. I think that you'll see Baker is. I think Baker is going to be very determined to win after all of the other things that you just saw happen in Cleveland over the last couple of weeks. And there's Baker's one of those guys that once you put a chip on his shoulder, he finds a way to use it as fuel. And I think that that's going to be some of the things that you'll see carry him through and ultimately carry this Browns offense through this week. And I believe I saw where Nick Chubb is out on this game and Dearness Johnson was getting the second start of his career on this one. So it could be very, very interesting there, because I think you're right. I think the Patriots you're going to see a lot of loaded boxes there, which it wouldn't surprise me if you see Donovan Peoples-Jones sneak out and end up connecting on a long pass with this one here. And that's some sneaky upside that I could see playing out there. Any other thoughts here? Cool. Let's go ahead and head on over to New York. The Buffalo Bills are meeting up with the New York Jets. The Bills favored by 12. The over-under is 47.5. What are your thoughts here? That's one.
Dang it. I'm taking the Jets to cover in this one. Like, until the Bills show me that they can kind of re-energize this offense, I don't know, them and the Chiefs both. Like, it's just not looking great here the last few weeks. So I'm going to take the Jets to cover. The Jets are good against the pass. They're a little weak against the run, but the Bills don't run the ball well. And we saw what happened with this just 2 weeks ago when they played, right? Like the Jets did a good job, and now they're at home and everything else. So I'm going to take the Jets to cover this game. Do I want the over, the under? I'm going to say the under. I don't think the Bills put up enough points in this one to get to the over.
I can dig that. I do like what you're saying there. Mike White looks like he's going to be back to give this thing a go. That Jets offense just seems to move pretty well with him under center. The last couple of times we've seen him, and I could see that coming to fruition again. I believe Zach Moss is out of this game, so it's going to be a Devin Singletary type of week when you're looking at potentially having some as far as the running back goes there. So I like what you're talking about on the Jets covering this one. I do think that the over gets hit, but it's going to be just on the barely side of it. So when it's all said and done, I think that you're probably going to see, somewhere around a 28 to 21 type of game here as far as that goes, which, Buffalo winning, the Jets ultimately covering, and the over being touched there with that 28-21 type of score. Any other thoughts here?
No. Since these are now games that we've all talked about, BetMGM has a nice little 3-game parlay. Saints, Patriots, and Bills all to win at a nice plus 360. And, since we just called all those games, I think I'm going to put a little sauce on that one, put my money where my mouth is here, and see what's good for us.
There you go. I like it. I like it a lot. Let's go ahead and head on over then to the Lions and the Steelers. So Detroit Lions heading over to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh's favored by 8 in this one. The over-under is 42.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
This Lions team's about done, I think. The Steelers are tougher at home, and for all their inefficiencies, they just kind of continue to find ways to win games. It seems like it's just that Steelers way. So I'm going to take the Steelers on the money line. I'll take them to cover the 8, actually. I don't think Jared Goff and company is going to be able to get enough going. I'm really hoping that we see a big TJ Hawkinson sighting again. Like him and DeAndre Swift are the only two ways that things are getting done. Khalif Raymond, I can't believe he's their number one wide receiver. Like
Right.
going into week 10, like that just doesn't scare me at all. So you need Hawkinson, you need Swift for the Lions to be able to keep it close. But here's another game where it feels like an under. Like it just feels like we're going to be in for a lot of low scoring dud fantasy performances again this week. So Steelers win on the money line. I'm staying away from the 8, honestly. And I'm going to take the under.
Yeah. Well, this was one of those that every time I look at this thing, like I just kind of get that. Yeah. Sometimes when you just look at games and you look at that and you go, man, this one could be an upset. I like just the way that everything's kind of gone lately, all of that. This one could be an upset. I don't feel very confident in calling it that way. So I will take the Steelers to win. But again, I think this is going to be kind of just a low scoring, sloppy affair where, you'll see Pittsburgh win. I don't see them winning by more than a touchdown in this game. So, this one kind of has that feel of almost being like a 24-16 type of matchup there, 24-17 type of matchup there. And so that's really where I'm thinking that one's going to lie with the Steelers winning in that 24-17 type of range. So any other thoughts here?
No, that game's not going to be very fun to watch. No Chase Claypool. So that, see a lot of Ray McLeod. I think it's not going to – I don't think it's going to be James Washington. Like I think you're just going to see more Ray McLeod, obviously Deontay Johnson. Pat Freiermuth has shown he can be a pretty reliable option for Big Ben. So I expect his volume to kind of keep pace and then, see some Najee, and then quite frankly, you're probably going to see a lot of Benny Snell in this game too, because I think Najee's a little dinged up, right? We saw the report about that come out, so he may not even go if they go through warmups and he says he can't. You'll be seeing Benny Snell and a lot of 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah. Question coming in on the YouTube. Joshua on YouTube, is Ayuk a good flex for Monday Night Football? What are your thoughts on this one?
You know what? I like what Ayuk has shown us the last couple of weeks. It seems like he's kind of worked his way out of the Kyle Shanahan doghouse. He's been seeing a higher percentage of snap count than what he saw earlier in the season. We're seeing Jimmy Garoppolo look his way a bit more. George Kittle coming back and now being able to have Ayuk, Kittle, and Debo all on the field at the same time helps, right? And a lot of times that teams will get so focused on one or the other, and now that they can kind of spread that out, I think Ayuk's good for probably 14 to 15 points in PPR type scoring this week. If he can break a long one, then you're going to see him hit up in that 20 mark. But I think Ayuk's going to be a good flex play, right? I mean, anything more than 10, 11 points and your flex play pretty much hits for you. That's why you have him there. So if that's the option you have, I'm okay with it. Like I'm not dreading putting Ayuk in my lineup.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that one as well. I think that he'll give you some decency fantasy upside there, and can definitely do some things in that game there. And really, Josh, it would depend on what your other options are out there as well, right? Like I certainly don't have a problem playing him this week. I think he started to show something as far as fantasy relevance there and some of those types of things as far as what that looks like. But really depends on what your ultimately other options are there. But I'd feel pretty confident about starting him if I had to in my flex for Monday Night Football this week. Hey, Joshua, thanks for the question. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you very much, guys. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, make sure you throw them in the chat. And we'll run through those there as well. Speaking of the chat, Peng's Picks over on the Twitter is saying, I'm not sure if that's Mo or Moo, But either way, Peng, we appreciate you tuning in. Peng's Picks, we've seen him show up a couple of times when we've taken things to Sports Meet to do the
Spicy take.
the spicy takes. He's been in a couple of those and made his appearance through video on some of those in the past there as well. So thanks for tuning in, Peng's Picks. We appreciate appreciate you checking us out there again. Let's go ahead and head on over to the next game here, and we're going to rock and roll over to, oh man, my Kevin, you'll never guess what happened. There it is. Okay, it's working again. Alrighty. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to the Washington football team. Tampa Bay is favored by 9.5 here. The over-under is 51. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think Tampa Bay's going to crush. Absolutely crush. Like I think that they went into the bye week feeling pretty salty after losing that game to the Saints and how they were frustrated about the way that they played. And if you can have Tom Brady that laser focus going into a bye week, I'm sure he worked his teammates like dogs, trying to make sure that they didn't have any more of the miscues. They're going to be without A.J. Brown. They're going to be, without Antonio Brown. They're going to be without Rob Gronkowski. Chris Godwin is a game-time decision, and I still don't think it matters. So Mike Evans is the clear start here. You're going to see a lot of him. I think it's going to be Leonard Fournette being able to do a lot out of the passing game too as he kind of leaks loose. I think you'll see O.J. Howard make a sighting this week as they try and find different weapons to plug in. Tyler Johnson is another guy that I expect to potentially have a good game and be able to hit one deep. So it doesn't matter. Tom Brady, I still have him keyed in for 303 touchdowns. That's just my standard line for Tom Brady this season in this offense. And more often than not, it's hit. So I'm going to stick with that. I don't think Washington has enough to keep up. Antonio Gibson's questionable again. Logan Thomas isn't going. His hamstring's not ready. Curtis Samuel, we're still in the air about that one. So that leaves Scary Terry. And as good as Terry McLaurin is, he can't do it all on his own. We've seen that this season. So it should be easier for the Tampa Bay secondary to cover one guy and not a whole slate of guys where they've really struggled this season covering multiple matchups. They have to worry about one guy not beating them through the air. I think they can do that. And ultimately, I expect this to probably be a 2-touchdown game when it's all said and done with. I'm going to take the under the 51 because I don't think Washington is going to have enough firepower to be able to get it there.
Yeah, I can see that. I ultimately see this one almost being a 31-20 type of matchup, which puts it right there almost at a push type of thing there. I do see Tampa Bay winning this one. I do see them getting up big and just running away with it. And I'm hoping that the Washington football team can find a way to feed Terry McLaurin enough for fantasy, for my own fantasy teams that I have out there. But I don't know. I think this one is going to be a little bit rougher sledding for them just because of everything that you talked about there. So I'm right there with you. I'm actually I'm going to say the under on that one. Anytime that I'm going to call a push type of thing with my 31-20 type of score, I'm going to say the under on that one is more likely to hit. And I'd like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to just run away with this one here. So any other thoughts? Okay. We do have a question coming in on YouTube. I think that's Taggy Carp on YouTube. Emmanuel Sanders, Gage, Freiermuth, got to start 2 PPR. Who you going with?
I think I'm sitting Sanders in this one. Sanders has the toughest matchup going up against the Jets. We've seen Cole Beasley get a bit more acclimated. Stephon Diggs, we're still waiting for that monster Stephon Diggs game that we haven't seen yet this year, and I do think it's coming. So I think for me, It's probably going to be Emmanuel Sanders. Like, Freiermuth has a better opportunity to get in the end zone, so that will make up for probably the more targets, possibly the same amount of receptions that Sanders has. And Gage has the best matchup of all of them going up against his Cowboys secondary. So for those two reasons, I think I'm leaning Gage and Freiermuth as my two starts this week.
Yeah. Yeah, cosign. I was trying to figure out a narrative in which I could start Emmanuel Sanders, but there's been multiple times this season that the Jets allow teams to just get so far out ahead of them that it becomes a run type of game, and then even with the Bills and them not being much of a run team, there like I have a feeling that Emmanuel Sanders could very easily become game scripted out of that matchup there. So I'm with you. Another question from Taggy Carp as well over on YouTube saying trading Emmanuel Sanders and Bateman for Devante Smith. PPR, he's 7-2. Really like Smith's matchup in the playoffs. If that's what you like, is you like the playoff matchups there, there's nothing wrong with going out and getting your guy if you're seeing a shot there running through the playoffs there. I think that I may personally sit a little bit more pat on that one, just having seen what Bateman looked like last night and seeing how he's starting to emerge in that offense there. Emmanuel Sanders, though, does worry me as far as what his role is going to continue looking like in that Bills offense there, because we've seen that very much diminish over the last couple of weeks there. So I can make a case for either one, but I'll tell you, go out and get your guy for the playoffs. And if you like the playoff matchup there, I'm for it. What are your thoughts on it, Kevin?
I'd agree. I like Devonta Smith. I have him in a couple different places. I've been very happy with his output this season and having to play him in a couple tight spots because of bye weeks and everything else. Obviously, Smith is not going to be available week 14. So the first round of your playoffs, and if you're looking at his matchups, then you understand that already. I'm not telling you something you don't know.
Right.
But Smith won't be available week 14. So if that's the start of your playoffs, as long as you have a contingency plan in place, you should be good to go. And then the rest of the way, like Derek said, if you think Devonta Smith is your guy and you believe in those matchups, go make the move. There's nothing wrong with something this close, with you being happy with who you have on your lineup and going and getting a guy that you feel like is going to put you over the top. And if this is it, go for it.
I like it. James over on YouTube say, which defense special teams would y'all use? The Packers, Saints, Philadelphia, or Cleveland? Man, that is I probably wouldn't go with Cleveland on that one. I could make a case for him, but I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't go with
Saints.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go with the Philadelphia either. The Broncos have a tendency to play well at home, and they have the Eagles coming through there as well. And I could see the Broncos winning that game, putting up multiple points.
I like the Saints.
Yeah.
We talked about all the reasons we think that game's going to be an under. They realize what they're up against. Their run defense is, I think, top 3 in the league right now. So AP and Nichols, they're not going to be able to get it going on the ground. Marshawn Lattimore is going to be up against A.J. Brown, so I do think that limits him. And the Saints are very familiar with what Julio does. So I like the Saints this week in a low-scoring affair.
Yep, I'm going to co-sign on that. Guys, appreciate all the questions coming in. Again, if you guys are out there watching, you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, throw them out here. Let's talk about them. Let's walk through it with you. One of the other things, if you guys are watching if you could help us out by heading over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell. We do this show for you live 3 times a week, and really appreciate everybody helping support us over there. Kevin, let's go ahead and head on over into the next matchup here, and that is going to be the Carolina Panthers. So Carolina Panthers heading to Arizona, and the Cardinals are favored by 10.5. The over-under is 44. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like that blackout. Like in the past, you've had it at that electric blue. I like that blackout. It looks crisp. That's probably going to be the best thing the Panthers have going for them this week. In theory, it should be Christian McCaffrey early, Christian McCaffrey often, and just feed him to give yourselves a fighting chance. PJ Walker, I am not a believer in whatsoever. This is going to be most likely his one and only start before Cam Newton gets acclimated enough with Matt Rule's offense that he's going to come in and take over here for at least the next few weeks until Sam Darnold's fractured scapula heals, and even at that point he might have done enough to just win it from Sam Darnold just because of all the turnovers and the poor play. So if the Panthers can get through this week, they really have a chance of trying to at least fight for a playoff spot. Their defense is better than people give them credit for. It's been all the short fields and crappy situations that their quarterback play has put them into. But it pains me to say this, but DJ Moore, I'm not expecting a whole heck of a lot of out of this week because of PJ Walker. So a lot of Christian McCaffrey. Outside of that, I'm staying away from all Panthers unless I absolutely have to. I'm fighting this decision myself in my home league. Like, am I going to start DJ Moore or am I going to take the upside of a Kadarius Toney and just see what that rolls out? And so I'm not loving it. So that being said, I'm going to take the Cardinals in this game. As long as Kyler's playing, they shouldn't have any issues. We're going to see a lot of James Conner. We may or may not see Nuke Hopkins again, but ultimately, I don't know if that's going to matter against this team. So AJ Green has been cleared from COVID, so he'll be back into the fold. Christian Kirk's still around. You still have Rondell Moore and Andy Isabella and Zach Ertz, all these weapons at the disposal for the Cardinals, and I expect that to ultimately triumph. So they're at home. That helps too. So I'll take the Cardinals to cover. This game is probably not going to be pretty from Carolina. I expect them probably only 10 or 13 points out of Carolina. So we might hit. This is another under for me. Like as well as Arizona can play, they're not going to feel the need to pour it on once they get up because the Panthers really don't have any ability to crawl back in a game unless Christian McCaffrey just has one of his out-of-body experiences and goes for 200 total yards and 3 touchdowns, which is possible. It's Christian McCaffrey, but I'm going to take the odds here, and the odds are he'll get his, but that's about it, and they'll score about 13 points, and we'll have another under game.
Yeah, this one wouldn't surprise me to see like a 28-13 type of matchup with the Cardinals winning there, which puts me in the same boat that you're just talking about there, with it being a lower, being an under, being a Cardinals win, being a Cardinals cover type of thing. So that's how I could see that one playing there. Now, this game does shift pretty drastically in my mind if Kyler ends up having to miss on this one. Because at that point, it probably becomes a closer thing. And then I definitely see the under being hit there and the Cardinals winning, but it's going to be a much, much tighter matchup there. Any other thoughts here?
No, other than I just realized I misspoke. I said Kadarius Toney. I was talking about Corey Davis.
Gotcha.
For wrong New York wide receiver here to have to flip out for DJ Moore. And God, I don't feel great about that, but I don't know what else I'm going to do, guys. Like, it's going to be a tough week here for Team Zika virus.
Yep, it will be. All right, another question coming in on YouTube. This one from James. Wentz or Wilson? It's a great question. That's a great problem to have on this one. I'm going to lean Wentz on this one, even though I think that I already called it, saying that that the Colts are going to jump up early and take the air out the ball. I think you'll see the Seahawks maybe put more air attempts up there, but I'm going to take the guy that's playing lights out and has been playing lights out for the last month over the guy that's coming back off of IR and has been out for 5 weeks. So I'm going to take Wentz in the he's on fire, and I'm going to play the hot hand.
If Aaron Rodgers plays, I'm playing Russell Wilson. If Aaron Rodgers sits, I'm going to play Carson Wentz. And the sole reason for that is what the Packers will do to put pressure on the Seahawks to keep pace. I don't think Jordan Love's going to be able to keep that clip that Rodgers can. He looked like an inexperienced quarterback last week against the Chiefs, and he definitely didn't play great in reading coverages, in understanding his responsibilities pre-snap, and how to diagnose plays and get the ball out of his hands quickly. So Packers fans need Aaron Rodgers in this game. If he is able to clear the COVID protocols and get in, I think that helps Russell Wilson's fantasy value because it will keep this game in more of a track meet type scenario than if Jordan Love plays. So Carson Wentz is a great pivot for me if Rodgers doesn't go, because of it will. I truly believe it will affect Russell Wilson that way. But if Rodgers goes, I think Wilson's a top 10 top 10 quarterback this week. I don't know if Wentz quite gets there just because they are going to lean so heavily on the ground game against this Jacksonville team who probably doesn't have a whole lot of fight in them.
Fair enough. So some interesting things back and forth going on in the comments there. So we're going to hit that one up. Nate on YouTube, welcome back, Nate. I know that we've seen you in the chat before. OBJ, and I think he means OBJ or Cup. James saying, Nate, it's Cup. Nate saying, okay, thanks. This one had me rolling though. Never OBJ unless it's 2017. From James on YouTube. I tend to agree on that sentiment there. Nate though has another question on YouTube. Pick two: CMC, Eckler, and James Conner. It's CMC and Eckler for me on this one.
Yeah, who do you have in your flex spot that you're not going to play James Conner?
Right. That's what I was also curious about.
It is CMC and Eckler. Like, those are the two.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm just curious, like, who do you have flexing out that you're not going to play Conner? Because Conner should be a top 12 running back this week.
Yeah. And even if he puts up a more dud type of performance, he's still going to be a top 15, top 20 type of back, which firmly is going to get you points. So, Nate, very curious to see who is in your flex. If you can let us know who you're playing in the flex over Conner, that'd be awesome. Thanks. He's saying Taylor. Man, you have a
holy shit.
Yeah, that's a wonderful problem to have.
Good for you. Yeah, go ahead and sit James Conner. You don't need him.
Yes. I big fan of that roster already. I don't know what the rest of it looks like, but I'm a big fan of those running backs. So I like it. Congratulations, Nate, on putting that together. That's a stellar team. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head over to the Minnesota Vikings meeting up with the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers favored by 3. The over-under is 53. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think it's the Chargers at home. This Minnesota team just can't quite get it together. This Minnesota team can't manage to figure out that Justin Jefferson is the best option for catching passes, and Adam Thielen's good. Like, Adam Thielen's no slouch. But how is Justin Jefferson only getting 6 targets a game? Like, this guy should be seeing 8 or 9 targets a game no matter what, and finding ways to get your playmakers the ball. He's so explosive, and they're just not quite getting it. I expect Dalvin Cook to have a really good game because the Chargers are not good against the run, so Cook's a must start. And just obviously Eckler will do his things receiving out of the backfield. You'll probably see him 80, 85 yards and a touchdown is kind of what I'm expecting out of Eckler this week, which should be more than enough. And I'm a little surprised that this game's only 3 points. I like the Chargers to cover in this one. And another game that I like the under. Like, I don't see the Vikings, with the way that they've performed offensively, being able to put enough points to force this game over. So we're going back to the low-scoring theme of the week here, guys. It's going to be tough sledding. But Cook, yes. Jefferson, you're playing him if you drafted him and just hoping that he's able to break a deep one or actually see the targets that his talent level deserves. And for the Chargers, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams has kind of reverted back to that lower end wide receiver 2, top end wide receiver 3 type territory. So it's definitely a boomer bust play. But if you're chasing points, the Vikings have been known to give up a deep shot or two. So if you're chasing points and you need a big performance, Mike Williams isn't a bad option there. Yeah, I like the Chargers to cover the 3. And it might end up being a push, which is entirely possible for a push game. But I like the under for sure.
Yeah, I see this one playing out 27-24 when it's all said and done. Like that's how I see this one playing out with the Chargers winning this one.
If the Vikings can put up 24 points, I think fantasy managers will be happy overall.
Yes, I would agree with that. Same thing on the Chargers side of it. If they're putting up right around that 27 mark, they'll see enough volume all over the place to have pretty good fantasy days all around there. But when I was looking at this one, that really is where I kind of see this one come into play, is really kind of that 27-21. I think Justin Jefferson, to your point, has a ho-hum type of game. Dalvin Cook breaks off for a couple of big plays in this one, puts up a monster fantasy line, and Adam Thielen falls into the end zone on it. So that's really how I kind of see this one playing out there. Any other thoughts on this guy?
That's what I'm looking at. I was listening to a pretty interesting show here earlier today, and they brought up the possibility that if the Vikings realize that their Super Bowl window has closed and they just don't have the dogs to hunt, and the Dalvin Cook legal situation becomes something that could be overnight, right? And possibly going on the commissioner's list or anything like that, that Alexander Madison is a good guy to possibly throw some trade offers out for and see if you can catch one of your league mates napping a little bit. Just to have that insurance, right? Because if Cook goes on that commissioner exempt list because of this legal situation and he is unable to go, Madison provides, running back 2 upside instantly and can help kind of bolster you through if you're limping along here at running back at the moment. So it's a thought. It made a lot of sense when I heard it. I'm like, okay, like you can see how that goes. Alexander Madison shouldn't demand a super high trade value at the moment unless the owner also has Cook. And if that's the case and they're handcuffed, it's going to be tough to pry Madison away. But if he's just on a one-off roster, it's not a bad idea. Toss something out there and see what you can get if you're able to kind of bring him in on the chance that Cook doesn't have the greatest health history and he's having some legal situations go on, whether he's the victim or whether he's the aggressor. I'm going to let the court system play that out. But how this plays for fantasy is it's worth exploring to better your team if that chance does come up.
All righty. Let's go ahead and head on over to the next matchup here. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles coming to the Denver Broncos. Denver's favored by 2.5. Over under on this one is 45.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm screwed here. I haven't been able to pick a Broncos game right since week 3. So the Broncos are at home. They should be able to move the ball at least fairly well against this Eagles defense. The Eagles don't scare me through the air, so it's just a matter of if this team can get home and create a lot of frustration for Jalen Hurts and keep him within the pocket, right? It's how many yards are you willing to give up to Jalen Hurts? The good thing about this is the Broncos faced Lamar Jackson earlier this year, and they did a really good job keeping Jackson contained. really good job. Lamar Jackson beat them through the air with his arm and deep shots to Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. It was not because he ran all up and down on them. And if you remember, that Ravens-Broncos game at the end was where they kind of called that, the outside zone run to get over 100 yards to keep the streak intact, that type of thing. So they managed it well. Another under game, though. Like, I think the Broncos win this game by 3. So I'm taking the Broncos to cover, and I'm taking the under. But this is another game where, 2017, 21-17, 24-20. So something like that is very much within the probabilities, and I just don't see some offensive explosion like the Broncos showed last week against the Cowboys. I do think there's some natural regression there. Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon will get more than their fair share of touches, and then between Fant's coming back, so that helps the passing game. You're actually going to be able to see this offense with Sutton, Judy, Fant, and Tim Patrick. Like, the weapons on offense for the Broncos are good. It's the quarterback play that's kind of holding it back, if you will. So we'll see how it plays out. But until they show me otherwise, I'm taking the under, but I think the Broncos can cover the 2.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've seen this one playing out 24-21 in favor of the Broncos when it's all said and done there. I think that you'll see some decent fantasy performances from the guys that you kind of have to play in this one, but I don't necessarily see anybody, moonshotting on this one and really putting up a monster performance there, right? Jalen Hurts will probably get probably get about 40 yards on the ground. I see him probably about 240 yards through the air, and he finds probably 1 or 2 touchdowns when it's all said and done.
What are you feeling for the Broncos receivers? How would you rank them for this game between Sutton, Judy, and Tim Patrick?
I think I probably would rank it just how you read that off, with Sutton, Judy, and then Patrick when it's all said and done.
Okay. I have Judy, Patrick, and then Sutton for this game. And it's just based off of how they've been playing lately. Tim Patrick just keeps playing himself into great situations, and the guy catches everything that comes his way, which is a good thing. Judy is known for his route running. He is a great outlet for Teddy Bridgewater when he's under duress, because he can get in and out of routes so well and so cleanly. And Courtland Sutton's been consistent, but it's been kind of that consistent, 3 to 5 receptions in that neighborhood of 50 to 70 yards. So I think for me, as much as I like Courtland Sutton, he's probably the guy that's lowest on my list just for that reason. Is he seems to provide the least amount of pop for his value this week.
I could definitely see that one playing out there. And I think you even went through and answered James's question on YouTube there with any thoughts on Tim Patrick. Kevin likes him.
Solid flex play this week.
Yeah, I could see that one for sure.
I'm not saying he's going to finish, top 15 by any stretch, but I do think that he is a very respectable flex play and someone that Teddy Bridgewater clearly trusts, right? Like he is building that rapport. He has earned the trust and respect from his quarterback, which is invaluable in the NFL when they have a connection like that. So Teddy has no problem going to Tim Patrick. He has plays in this offense that are dialed up specifically for him. And this just crossed my mind. Pat Shurmur, I don't think is going to be calling plays for this game.
I don't think so either. So you actually may see a bigger offense or bigger offensive swing for the Broncos than you normally do.
Which is possible, right? I mean, we just don't quite know how that's going to look like. Yes, he's been installing game plans. Yes, they're in phone calls with him and everything else. But it's definitely the unknown. I would definitely start going back to your question, James. I'm definitely starting Tim Patrick over. I'm assuming that's Jacoby Myers. And Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's Mark Ingram as well.
Mark Ingram's definitely going to see more opportunity. Just because he's pretty much the only show in town there for the Saints this week with Kamara being ruled out. So I expect him to have 17 touches in this game. So then it just comes into okay, yeah. Jacoby's definitely the odd man out. I don't think we're going to see a whole bunch out of him, and he doesn't have a propensity to get in the end zone anyway. Ingram does have a nose for the end zone. Sean Payton likes him a lot. That's why they brought him back in and wanted him there. I am probably going to tell you Ingram because I tend to like playing running backs more because I feel like their floor is a little bit higher because we know they're going to get touches on the ball. Tim Patrick does probably have a higher ceiling. So then it was just dependent on your game matchup. Who do you feel more comfortable with? Are you trying to protect a lead because all things are telling you that you should win the game? Then you're going with Ingram. If you're chasing points and you have a hill to climb, then Tim Patrick's probably the right play just because he's the big-bodied guy as far as the receivers go that the Broncos seem to like to throw the ball in the end zone to.
Yeah. Now, this is one, too, that could be an interesting thing there as well, right? Taysom Hill's back for the Saints there. And so we've seen him vulture touchdowns from Alvin Kamara pretty regularly in the past, right? Like, so while Simeon's going to be the starting quarterback and you've seen you've seen it where Kamara's going to be out. And I think Ingram's going to get a bunch of work there. And I saw him kind of in about that same range there. I think when I was statting him out there, it's going to be about 18 opportunities in this game there and probably somewhere around about 70 yards on the ground. The question for me is, does he fall into the end zone when it's all said and done? Right. Like, and that's the case that I just don't know that I can see that one happening because if Taysom Hill is back and playing in this one, they get down inside that red zone. I have a feeling it's going to be the Taysom Hill show, not the Mark Ingram show down there. And I don't know that Mark Ingram has enough juice and enough pop, enough burst to break off a 20-yard run to get in there from further out in the red zone there. So that kind of limits his upside for me a little bit. Tim Patrick, I listening to you talk there, I think you've kind of brought me around on him a little bit more so to the point where I think he's got more touchdown upside. And I think you're probably going to see him, catch probably 5 receptions somewhere right around 55 yards when it's all said and done there. So that's, again, that goes right back to your point, higher floor on Ingram, but Patrick probably has the bigger upside there. So I like it. Cool. James, hopefully that answers your question there. Let's go ahead and head on over here into the next matchup. And you've got the Seattle Seahawks going to Lambeau and facing off against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers favored by 3.5, over under 49.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
For me, this all hinges on Aaron Rodgers. I've said this a couple times during the show. I'm going to say it again. If Rodgers plays, I think the Packers and the over. If Rodgers doesn't play, I still like the Packers on the money line, but I think Seattle finds a way to cover with Jordan Love not being able to move the football as efficiently, and at that point, I would take the under. So it is a mixed bag. It does all depend on what the quarterback does and doesn't do. At the moment, I don't think I trust Aaron Rodgers to play this game. Like, it just doesn't look like he's making the progress and getting the negative test that he needs. We'll definitely know tomorrow. So things could change. So I'm going to say the Packers are without Aaron Rodgers. So the Seahawks cover, the Packers on the money line, and the under.
I don't know if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play that the Packers have the juice to get this game. I really don't. I think if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, I like Seattle to win this one out.
Defense has been lights out, though. Like the win in Arizona was the defense driven, right? Like Aaron didn't have a great game, and that defense shut down Kyler Murray. They had opportunities against Kansas City, again, because that defense was lights out on the road in both instances. Now they get to come back home. And so that's where that kind of tilts it for me. Is like, this defense is on a roll right now, and I don't think that them being at home is a reason for them to lighten up. It should help them. Right. Having the crowd noise behind them and everything else. So I guess that's where my thought process is with it.
Fair enough. And it's one of those that I could see it being a case that if this was Geno Smith and Jordan Love facing off against one another, absolutely, I'm going that route. But I think that you're going to see Russell Wilson playing very inspired the rest of the way in this deal. Right, they are sitting. They're sitting in not a great spot when it comes towards looking towards the playoffs here, things like that. And so I think you're going to see Russell Wilson. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, that tilts the scales in that favor, even with him coming off of that finger, even with him coming off of the injury on this one, that I see him putting this team on his back end and being able to carry them to a win. If Aaron Rodgers plays, I think that neutralizes that effect, and you see it where Green Bay wins. So this is very much hinging on that point for me as well. Now, as far as that goes, right, if Rodgers doesn't play, I see an under type of game. If Rodgers does play, I think that this becomes a little bit more of a shootout type of thing, and you see these teams really go back and forth at each other here, having a very intense type of feeling on the field when it's all said and done. Any other thoughts on this one?
Don't play Alex Collins.
No.
Like regardless, right? Like getting into the fantasy side of things, I'm not playing Alex Collins. You play DK, you play Tyler Lockett. Hell, I'm playing Gerald Everett in a couple leagues just because I waited on tight end, and he's the guy who I have this week. So I'm good with that. I'm playing Devante Adams no matter what. I'm playing Aaron Jones no matter what. If Rodgers plays, then Valdez-Scantling and Alan Lazard come into play just because Seattle is giving up so many yards per play right now. I think that we could see a lot of that. And if you were in a big pinch, then you're playing A.J. Dillon. But you really need Dillon to fall into the end zone to cement that fantasy worth right now, because even if he gets 10 touches throughout the game, if 7 of those are rushes and 3 of those are catches, and it's only 60 total yards, that's going to be, it's 11 points, so it kind of gets you right there at that threshold for your flex play, but it's going to be scary getting there.
Cosign. I'll pull the Alex move there and just say cosign. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head out to Las Vegas, where the Kansas City Chiefs are meeting up with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chiefs are favored by 2.5. The over-under is 52. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Raiders in this game. Like they've seemed to have Kansas City's number lately. They play them well enough. Their defense has been completely designed around stopping Patrick Mahomes and this high-powered offense. So I think I like the Raiders out in the Las Vegas desert in this game, and we'll kind of get to see how they show on national television. I expect Darren Waller to have a very good game for the Raiders. I expect Kelsey to have a pretty good game for the Chiefs as well. But I do expect a lot of that kind of that cover 2 shell, right? That has been the kryptonite for Kansas City, and until they find a way to stay patient and just take what's underneath and take 6 yards a clip and march down the field and put together a 14-play drive or 2 14-play drives and force the safeties to cheat up a little bit so Tyreek can get behind them. Until they show that they can be patient, they're going to struggle. And I think the Raiders can get to Patrick Mahomes with their front 4, and it will allow them to sit in that shell until Mahomes can show us that he's not going to force the ball down the field, and he will take what the defense gives him. Yeah,
I would agree with you. I think that is absolutely how I see this one come into play. I also think Josh Jacobs has a very or Kenyon Drake. I see the Vegas backfield having good games when it comes to say as far as fantasy goes on this one. Which tends to happen in Raiders wins, not so much in Raiders losses. And I do see the Raiders winning this one. The Kansas City Chiefs, they just haven't looked like themselves this whole year. I think that you're right. I think you're going to see a lot of the defensive matchups there that you're talking about there. And I also think Hunter Renfrow has a pretty decent game here as well. I'm not necessarily looking at playing any of the outside receiving options for the Raiders. if you've got Tyreek Hill, obviously you're going to play him. If you got Travis Kelce, obviously you're going to play him. But I'm also staying away from Kansas City's backfield on this one. I don't see these guys necessarily doing very big things there. So, yep, I like your call there. I like the Raiders to win. These two teams also tend to get in a lot of shootouts over the years and really kind of go back and forth. And I see that one coming to play with this one as well. So I like the over. I like Vegas to win this one. Any other thoughts?
I think I like the under, but just barely. Like I see 27-24, right? Yeah. So that hangs us just under that 52 mark. So I guess, I'll call the under here. Vegas wins in the under, since I don't think I mentioned that earlier. But this should be a good game. This is a good game for Sunday Night Football. And hopefully we're able to see at least the teams move up and down the field here a little bit.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head over to San Francisco, where the Los Angeles Rams come to visit. The Rams favored by 4, the over-under 49. What are your thoughts here?
I think the Rams right the sins of what happened last week against the Titans. And we'll see that offense be a little bit more efficient. We're not going to see Stafford kind of force himself into some weird situations like he did against the Titans here this previous week. So I'm going to take LA to cover the 4. I think they find a way to win this game by 6 or 7 points. And this might be the straw that breaks San Francisco's back. Like this might be the game that finally gets them to say, okay, this ain't working. It's time for Trey Lance to make himself known and go out there a little bit. So it will be interesting to see what follows after this game. But the Rams know that they need to keep pace with the Cardinals, and you have to win this game in order to do that. But I like the over. I like the over for Monday Night Football, and I like the Rams to cover. I do think you're going to see Jimmy G find his targets here. The Rams haven't been as good against the rush, so Elijah Mitchell will have himself a pretty good game here on Monday Night Football. You will find Debo might have a tougher time, but I don't think Jalen Ramsey is going to just stay plastered to Debo. I think he will see a little bit of everybody. He'll see some Ayuk, he'll see some Debo, he'll see some Kittle in certain packages. So it might be tempered just slightly, but I don't think it's going to see blanket coverage all game long. So all of the typical Niner passing weapons are in full play here.
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on there. Interesting, we'll see what it looks like with some of the new, newly acquired members of the Rams, right? Von Miller making his Rams debut in this one. I believe Odell Beckham is slated to play in this one as well, which that's an interesting narrative in itself. But I do think the Rams win. I think they've just got too much firepower for these 49ers, and this 49ers defense is not what we've seen even from a couple of years ago when they made their run. And really, I think that you're right. I think this is the one that, with the Niners potentially falling to 3-6, then you're going to see Trey Lance kind of the rest of the way and get him meaningful game time type of reps and let him start seeing what the NFL game looks like. That's not a preseason type of thing. That's not a designed package for him to run 1 or 2 plays type of things, but actually get him meaningful game snaps and really start preparing him for the future there. In San Francisco here as well. So it's an interesting deal, though. I still couldn't wrap my head around the fact that that Odell wanted out of Cleveland because he wasn't getting the ball and wasn't getting thrown to, things like that. I don't know how that is going to be able to be changed in Los Angeles, where I think he's the 3rd best receiving option.
I think he's the 3rd best receiving option. I think it's also the best quarterback he's ever played with. Like Matt Stafford's a better game in, game out quarterback than Eli Manning or Baker Mayfield. Now, this first game back, my expectations are extremely tempered. Like if the Rams have 50 offensive plays, just ballpark it. Right. I think he's on the field for 10 of them. Like, I just don't see this very first week him having a whole heck of a lot. But if he's on the field for 10 and if he can find a way to catch 2 or 3 balls for 45 yards, I mean, he kind of serves his purpose, right? So it's going to be interesting going forward. If I'm Van Jefferson, I'm scratching my head saying, what do I need to do here? Like,
He was
what's
playing
going on?
good.
He was. He was. So OBJ definitely does not help the fantasy life for Rams receivers, right? Like it does, it will eat into Cooper Kupp a little bit. It will eat into Robert Woods a little bit. It will eat into Van Jefferson a little bit. Like all of that is real frustration. Like it takes Robert Woods and kind of puts him firmly in that low end wide receiver 2, top end wide receiver 3. It puts Van Jefferson as a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. And I think it just leaves OBJ at a solid wide receiver 3. Like I think ultimately that's probably where it's going to end out. So it's going to be a rotating door as he gets acclimated. One guy's going to have a bigger week, and we might see this kind of rotate through here for the rest of the season, which if you're a Cooper Kupp owner, it does kind of suck, right? Like this guy's been lights out. He has been carrying your fantasy team from a wide receiver perspective, and you're able to get him at such a discount. You have him paired up with another top flight wide receiver. You drafted Kupp as your wide receiver 2, and he's carrying your wide receiver room. So that does stink a little bit. So we'll see more, especially after this game being on national television. We'll kind of get a feel for what it does, and then as the season plays out the rest of the way. But I'm not expecting big things from OBJ this week. But after he gets acclimated, if he strikes a good rapport, we could see McVay scheme a couple different shots for him and see how the season plays out.
Yeah, I don't know that it does much to affect Cooper Kupp long term, like maybe a little bit here and there, but for the most part, that chemistry is firmly cemented with Matt Stafford there. And that's the guy that Stafford looks to, and we've seen that in the past where when Stafford has a guy that he can lock onto, he locks onto it, and he'll spread the ball around it and make the smart decision, things like that. But I don't know that we're going to see much of a decrease for Cooper Kupp here. Maybe 1 or 2 targets a game at the most type of thing, which that could affect some things there, but I don't know that it's going to do much for fantasy value for him long term on this one. But Kevin, I do believe that that's going to take us down here to about the end of it. Guys, if you have any final questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, any other thoughts, throw them out here in the chat. We've got a couple of minutes here before we're going to sign off and rock and roll that. So if you got any questions, anything like that, make sure you throw them out there. Kevin, as we're kind of wrapping up here, any final thoughts for the listeners and viewers?
I think my final thoughts now that we're into it is don't be the person who just doesn't set fantasy lineups. Like go through, set the lineups each week. You drafted the team, own it. And you know what? If you're 2-7 at this point, it sucks. I'm sorry. We can work on that, right? We can get better, but you just throwing your hands up and saying, screw it, I don't care. It tosses the balance of the league out of whack. It really does. And it creates weird situations down the stretch where teams who probably don't deserve to be in the playoffs get into the playoffs, and it's just not nearly as fun. So please go through, set your lineups. You don't have to hammer the waiver wires hard if that's the situation that you feel like you're in, but at least set them. You should always be grinding. You made the commitment when you signed up to it. Just finish it out, and then if you don't want to play next year, don't play next year. But follow through, finish out this season, set your lineups, so that way the rest of the league is in balance. Don't be that person.
100% agree. What Nate on YouTube asking, what's your thoughts on DJ Moore?
He scares me this week. Yep. I think with Cam coming back, it honestly doesn't hurt DJ Moore a whole heck of a lot because they've played together before. Right. Cam used DJ Moore a lot in the time that they played together. So that part of it doesn't bother me as much if he can get acclimated with him again. But this week with PJ Walker, DJ Moore scares me. Like he's squarely in wide receiver 3 territory for this week, which is a bummer. But outside of this week, I think it does bounce back a little bit. You probably won't see as many targets heading his way. Part of it's because Christian McCaffrey's back, Nate, but you might see more quality targets heading his way. So instead of 9 or 10 targets, you might see 7, maybe 8 targets, but they're quality targets where teams are a little bit more focused on McCaffrey, and so he's able to grab an extra reception or 2 each game, and then the yards that come along with that. So it sucks. I'm trying to decide what I want to do with him in the home league, so I'm right there with you, and I've just kind of subscribed to the fact that this week is a lost week with him for me, and then I just need to figure out what I want to do going forward before our league trade deadline passes.
Right. For me, I'd probably be looking to try and move him, and I have been kind of trying to shop him a little bit in some of my other leagues, seeing what I can get. And the trade market's not where you would certainly hope, especially with a guy seeing as many targets per game. He's the third most targeted receiver in the league this year, and the trade value isn't necessarily there. So I'm probably going to have to be forced to hang on to him because I'm not going to necessarily get the value for it in a lot of cases. And, one of those that you just kind of hope that, Cam coming into the rotation helps that. Christian McCaffrey back and running at full speed helps that as well. And, again, now you start seeing it to a point where DJ Moore is able to, get a little bit more single type of coverage, make a guy miss and house one from 70 yards out, which he's fully capable of doing. And he has that kind of capability there. But great question, Nate. Thanks for throwing it out there. Kevin, any other thoughts here before we sign out?
No, have fun. This week's going to be painful, guys. It really is. I don't see a lot of overs being hit. I see defense kind of continuing to rule the roost here as we fight through injuries, the last few bye weeks here over the next couple weeks, COVID issues, injuries, all the things. So it's tough. Keep grinding and feel free to let us know if you need any sort of assistance with your situation. We're more than happy to help out and at least lend our 2 cents for your situation.
Absolutely. And you can reach us at Good Old Boys FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow us on the socials, all of that. We're happy to help you out. Reach out to us. Let us know there. Again, one of the best ways to help out the show here is to head over to YouTube, click the subscribe button, ring the bell on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. But I do believe that that's going to take us to the end of this. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.